Sonic 1 gave us the Super Spin. Sonic 2 gave us the Spin Dash. Sonic 3 gave us the Insta Shield. Sonic CD gave us the Super Peel Out. Sonic Mania gave us the Drop Dash. And Sonic Superstar. But I want to focus on things that were added in fan games as either quality of life or additional features. People talk about wanting to evolve the classic Sonic formula, especially after Superstars. And I still think there's a lot of flexibility to be had with it, because as I'm about to show you, these fan games get really creative with their ideas. For example, Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit. We have the usual Insta Shield and Drop Dash, but now Sonic can do his air actions after bouncing off a spring or walking off a ledge. Other characters can do their air actions after rolling off ledges or up slopes, but not off springs. Still, this really improves the game flow. We can also see this in Sonic Time Twisted, where every character can do this no matter what state they're in while airborne. It's even used in some level design. Aside from that, we have the classic elemental shields. We also have 3 new elemental shields: Ice, Rock, and Air. My favorite is Air, which lets you fly freely for a short time period. The Rock shield lets you fire 2 projectiles as an attack, which regenerate over time. The Ice shield fires ice spikes in a short range around you. We can use all of these while in super form, and we can cancel Supersonic at will. The only thing that's missing, since this one came out before Mania, is the Drop Dash. I believe there's a huge update in the works to add it, and some other things too, but speaking of the Drop Dash, let's talk about Sonic and the Fallen Star. One thing I love that people don't seem to think about, let alone test, is the charge time for the Drop Dash. In Mania and Superstars and some earlier fan games, it's pretty long, a bit too long for my liking. But here, it's 1/10 of a second, or even slightly shorter, leading to maneuvers like this. It's one of my favorite things to do in this game. Like, the loops are perfectly sized for it. There's also a flight cancel for Tails. Another thing you may be familiar with about Tails is the ability to fly into things to hit them. For certain bosses in this game, you can actually go right back into flight. I just wish this was incorporated into regular gameplay for anything you bounce off to reset your flight. Back to Sonic though. The elemental shields return, but 2 of them have different functions. The bubble shield has its usual bounce. I recommend playing with it on downward slopes. But the fire shield is like the burst wisp from Sonic Colors on the DS, giving you 3 extra jumps, each bigger than the last. My favorite though would be the lightning shield. It has a diagonal dash going forward and down, and it acts as a speed multiplier. It's very fun to mess around with, and I'd argue that the next game we're going to talk about has even better power-up mechanics. Now, the next game I want to talk about is Sonic Classic 2. Like the last 2 games I mentioned, they use the elemental shields in a really fun way. The usual ones work normally, and we have a few new ones. This game also has its own kind of rock shield. This one extends your hitbox with a bunch of pebbles. There's also an air shield that gives you a bunch of mini jumps. Then there's a plasma shield that lets you charge up a mostly horizontal dash that you can use to move slightly upwards. But the kicker here is that you can store these shields. You have 2 shield slots that you can toggle between, and the icon on the right is to take your stored shields and combine them, creating new powers. For example, lightning and fire allows you to have a double jump with flaming projectiles below you. Fire and air greatly enhances your multi-jump and leaves a little fire below you. And my personal favorite is air and rock, which for some reason allows you to teleport in any direction, and even through barriers. As far as I know, the plasma shield doesn't have any combinations, and some combos don't work with rock, since the game was never fully finished. Side note, Supersonic can also use this shield mechanic. Another thing I wanted to talk about is this monitor right here. When playing as Sonic, you can hit a Tails monitor and he gets a Tails suit. At first, I thought this was a funny little Easter egg, but you can actually use this as a power-up to gain Tails' flight and swimming abilities. It lasts about 30 seconds, and as far as I know, this is the only one in the game. I vaguely remember a Knuckles monitor somewhere in Jupiter Jungle, which I tried to find for this video, but I wasn't able to. Anyway, as you can tell, this was also unfinished, but the idea here is so cool, and it's such a fun, silly little thing. These are great ways to evolve the formula. Superstars, take note. And please, someone finish Sonic Classic 2. Next game I want to talk about is Sonic and Friends 2. It's got less going on in terms of new mechanics or twists, but it has a fantastic split screen mode for either co-op or PvP through the game's stages. There are several modes for how you want to split your screen to your preference. There's also a surprisingly deep menu for adjusting difficulty. 8 difficulty levels, although I'm not sure what they may affect besides number of enemies and rate of drowning. There's also various health systems like the typical rings, but you also have various settings for a health bar or number of hearts like Zelda. You can even disable ring recovery if you want. I recommend messing around with the settings to see what works for you. This game is pretty unusual with its level design, but all the options make for a great co-op or versus experience. Take notes, superstars. Now for some honorable mentions. Sonic Hoshi's demo brings us the Star Dash, which is basically the hypersonic omnidirectional dash. You can do some wild things with the level design this way. Tails here has a flight cancel that acts as a stomp, which is great for downward hills. Sonic Hoshi is also a good example of how retro-sounding music can still work fine for these games. Let's take a listen. Unfortunately, the game was cancelled, and the devs said they wouldn't release the source code. I'm just grateful we have what we have though. Next honorable mention is Sonic Mega Mix Mania. It's a huge mod of Mania that gives each character a new moveset that makes their original abilities shine. For example, Tails gets a super jump that breaks through breakable ceilings and allows him to fly extra high. Knuckles gets a mini jump after stopping a glide, and his drill claw from Sonic Adventure 2. Next game is Sonic Chrono Adventure. This game as a whole is a really interesting evolution because it's a genuine Metroidvania with classic Sonic gameplay. The ideas mesh really well, and I strongly recommend giving it a try. We have upgrades, secrets, item shops. I especially like how the ring system was changed to be kind of a tier-based health bar. Now, I know I've made fun of Sonic Superstars a fair bit in this video, but I enjoy the game very much. And hey, shout out to Pariah695 for pointing out that Knuckles has a wall jump now. That's something. To me, Sonic Superstars really shines in Trip's story, where I feel like the mechanics and level design changes really complement each other. Here's to the next game pushing things forward. In the meantime, we have so many passion projects with cool ideas to try, and more that I didn't even mention here. So have fun, keep an open mind, and take care of yourselves. Thanks for watching.
What's that on the screen?